this is my review of Mob Psycho 100. Okay, so it's a slow day at the office for Reigen and Mob, which is a blessing and a curse for somebody who works as a psychic. Because on the one hand, that it's a good thing, because it means there's no spirit exercise, which means that it's relatively safe spirit-wise for people now. On the other hand, it means they don't get paid. So Reigen, desperate for clients, decides to investigate some urban legends, and upon realizing Mob doesn't know what an urban legend is, tries to explain it to him on the train ride to outside of the city. So according to Reigen, urban legends are kind of just born on the internet from people who just kind of see something they don't really understand, or are just born from like rumors and stuff like that really don't have much basis in fact, although that point comes into play a little bit later in quite a big way. So yeah, I think he explains a couple of urban legends from their worlds, but there is one particular urban legend in the real world, this one, that I think is personally interesting, and that's Spring-Heeled Jack. It was this thing from many years ago. To this day, nobody knows who, what, when, where, why, or how. But Spring-Heeled Jack just kind of randomly showed up a long time ago on the streets of London, and was just a public nuisance for the longest time before suddenly just disappearing. There were actual sightings of this guy. He dressed up as Batman and leaped tall buildings in a single bound like Superman. But for the most part, we don't really know who he is, what his goals were, or why he existed at all. He just kind of showed up a long time ago in the streets of London and disappeared without a trace. And to this day, nobody knows what he is. But yeah, Reigen determines that that was just the biggest aside, by the way. But Reigen decides to use this opportunity to investigate some urban legends and also maybe get some clients out of it. It's at this point where we're introduced to Banshimaro Shinra, a psychic in the area who isn't too happy with the fact that Mob and Reigen have just set up shop in the middle of the sidewalk, and he calls them out on it. However, while they're in the middle of arguing, a woman actually comes by and asks them to investigate some of the urban legends around the area, believing that she's possessed and that investigating these urban legends will actually help. And while Reigen is initially dismissive, after Mob senses it, he decides to join the case, and in the process actually realizes that he might need to make himself a website because his internet game is kind of weak, as he puts it. And he also enlists Banshimaro, again, much to his chagrin, by the way, but he asks Banshimaro to help him investigate some of the urban legends and that they'll split up to investigate a couple of them. And sure enough, Reigen and Mob go to a cafe to investigate one half of the rumors, while Banshimaro with Dimple in tow, at the request of Reigen, go to investigate some of the others. So Reigen and Mob go to an internet cafe to start researching rumors about the urban legends, pointing out that it would be kind of creepy to actually go and investigate some kids. And they eventually find a lead on the man-faced dog, one of the urban legends. And as it turns out, it's just a dog who some kids drew on with permanent marker to make it look like a hitman's face. And the old man who owns the dog is too blind to notice, so that they just kind of got away with it. And after beating the little kids over the head and telling them to never do this kind of thing again, Reigen and Mob volunteer to clean up the dog, and they do. So, meanwhile, Banshimaro is doing the exact opposite approach of what Mob and Reigen did, and actually going to interview kids about what's going on around in the area. And while he's initially labeled as a pervert, he eventually encounters another urban legend, the Red Raincoat, which is actually just a man named Akarain who dresses up as a red raincoat and is actually a flasher who targets small children. And notably, that's a very bad thing. So Banshimaro chases after him, gets into a brief fight that is very reminiscent of a fighting game, before Akarain retreats to the woods and Banshimaro chases after him. However, that was Akarain's plan, and he immobilizes Banshimaro with an electric cattle prod thing that he just kind of has. But then there's a third urban legend, the Dragger, which actually comes into play here. And the Dragger is legit. She's the first urban legend we see in this episode who's actually an urban legend. She attacks Akarain after his taser tries and fails to electrocute her, and then he himself gets paralyzed by his own taser, and then she begins to start dragging him into the water. And however, Banchimaru, who had just recovered from being tased, tries to ensnare him with his spirit powers, but it doesn't work on her, and she beats him up and throws him into the lake. However, Dimple, who had been watching this whole time, takes this opportunity to free Banchimaru from the lake and holds his own against the Dragger, while also alerting Mob and Reigen as to what exactly is going on. So he's able to hold his own against the Dragger, mainly because he realizes that if he lets Banchimaru die, then Mob will never trust him again, and he can't let that happen because he has personal reasons for why he doesn't want Mob to not trust him. But eventually Mob and Reigen do show up just when he thinks he's about to die. He's about to let Banchimaru die, and sends the Dragger flying into the lake. And then they begin to discuss the nature of the Dragger. So Dimple proposes what exactly the Dragger is, pointing out that it is first and foremost an urban legend formed from the internet by a bunch of nonsense, but over time the Dragger just kind of coalesced into its own thing. All the rumors suddenly just kind of combined into the Dragger. So the Dragger wasn't initially real, but the internet made it real, and then it became an actual thing. So yeah, it became an evil spirit based on all of the rumors surrounding it, and this urban legend eventually just became real. And at which point they decide to leave, but realize too late that the Dragger had actually flooded the area and pinned all their legs into the ground using the water. And they realize they can't leave, at which point the Dragger attacks them, having taken a monstrous muck form. But Mob actually uses his powers to dispel it. And Dimple and the others realize that the reason he's able to actually defeat the Dragger is because Mob didn't grow up on urban legends. He doesn't know what any of this is. He doesn't care. So he effortlessly exorcises the Dragger, and afterwards Banchimaru and Reigen part ways as old friends. And they also bring the Dragger in. So, well, not the Dragger, but the Slasher. They bring in Akarain so that he can get the reward money. And the two leave, but not before going to investigate the final urban legend of this episode, the Dashing Granny. So they go to the tunnel where the Dashing Granny is rumored to hang out, and sure, case in point, they actually see her running down the tunnel at full speed. And Mob realizes he can't exorcise her, and the three decide to run. Only to be quickly overtaken by the Dashing Granny, who outruns Mob, Reigen, and Dimple before exiting the tunnel. At which point, Mob gets into a bit of a fit because he kind of trains his hardest with the Body Improvement Club, and he lost to an old woman, so it hits him particularly hard. And as the narrator points out, this is the first urban legend that actually managed to scare Mob. Because his powers didn't work on her, he couldn't outrun her, and then when he found out she was just an old lady, he kind of had a nervous breakdown because he trained so hard to be so fast, and then it wound up just not working. But in any case, they get photos of all of the different urban legends, and then they leave. At which point Reigen decides to make a website and gives a preview of it to Dimple and Mob, who are kind of convinced it's a little bit shady because it doesn't really look like something you would see a consultant office for spirits look like. So, yeah, overall, this episode was just fun. It was about them investigating urban legends, and also investigating the fact that some urban legends, even if they aren't real, can become real with enough influence from the internet. So, maybe don't spread rumors across the internet about urban legends. That's the takeaway I took from this episode. Don't spread rumors, or they will become real and hunt you down. So, yeah, overall, this episode was great. I enjoyed it. It was a nice little side episode. We got to meet a new member in the psychic community. An actual psychic, might I add. His powers aren't very strong, but he is able to restrain spirits. So, yeah, he's at the very least formidable enough to take on a spirit with some ease. So, yeah, he does actually have psychic powers. But, yeah, But yeah, this episode was just simple. It was just them investigating urban legends, and one of them happened to be real. So, yeah. If you guys have seen this episode of Mob Psycho 100, what did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comments section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below if you want to help keep up to date with what's going on with the channel. I also post and retweet things from other groups over there that I like, so be sure to check those out as well. And if you want to help support the show, then be sure to check out my Patreon. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that are my way of saying thanks, so be sure to check those out in the description below as well. Again, only a couple bucks a month. It helps me out, so support me, and I'll support you guys in turn. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!